Hi, I'm Austin Miller. Today I'm making an episode talking about the ropes model in public relations, and kind of came up with like a example that would utilize that. So, pardon me, I got my notes here in front of me. The ropes model is essentially a model that's used in public relations, develops and executes responses to different challenges that companies may face. So I will demonstrate how this model is applied through a hypothetical crisis faced by a pretend company that I made up called Econist. It's an eco-friendly company that would specialize in like biodegradable, earth-friendly packaging. So we'll say Econist's reputation comes under threat when they have a report that surfaced links one of their suppliers to not very sustainable practices, you could say. So the Economist PR team could really use the ropes model to figure out a way to break down why this crisis happened and come up with a plan to execute and hopefully bounce back from a crisis like this. So they would do that. First, I guess the ropes model is research objectives. Excuse me. Programming or planning, then evaluate, and stewardship. I'll run through kind of what each letter stands for and what kind of the point of each step is. So research, you would define the problem. You would ask questions like, what is happening now? What is the source of the concern? Who is involved or affected and how? And why is this a concern? Objectives is when you would write goals that state what the coordinated program is intended to accomplish and by when. So what do we want people to think, or knowledge do we want people to have? What do we want people to feel? Like what opinion do we want to give them, and what are some incentives we could give them to change their opinions? What do we want people to do? Like how do we want them to act, their behavioral? And use SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, timely to develop the goals. The third step would be programming or planning. You decide how to achieve the outcomes, so what changes must be made, which would be an action plan, what changes must be communicated, which would be a communication plan, and what media do you need and how much of it, which would be the medium you would use to get that message out. And who, internal and external, must the program reach? The fourth step is evaluate. You would determine how to measure the effectiveness of the program you're using. How will outcomes and program goals and objectives be measured? How will results be reported and used to make changes? And you would use both qualitative and quantitative measures when possible. And the final step is stewardship. Stewardship is maintaining relationships that you create through the previous steps. So in this specific example with Econist's little crisis that they're having, we would start with the research phase. So the PR team at Econist would start by gathering data on what the issue is and the extent of it by reviewing their supply chain reports and feedback from customers. They would identify misinformation and the lack of communication between them and their suppliers about the standards that are driving the concern. The first step, research, you would essentially define the problem, gather information that's relevant to the situation, and you would understand the issue like in its fullness. So for Econist, this would begin with an investigation analysis. Their PR team would answer questions such as what is happening now. So there's reports that are alleging Econis supplier engages in non-sustainable practices, which undermines Econis's eco-friendly reputation. What are the sources of the concern? The source is identified as one of Econis's long-standing suppliers, so it's coming from somebody within that would have that kind of knowledge, technically. Who is involved or affected and how? So the main people that would be affected within or from this would be the stakeholders of Econis and its customers, employees, investors, and even advocates. This would be a concern because Econis' credibility would be, or is, based off its commitment to sustainability, which would kind of affect their customers' opinion on it if it was outright showing that they were not using sustainable practices for their product. So the PR team would collect all the data they could, including from supply chains, customer feedback, and even just from public, just to kind of gauge an idea of what people feel about the company. So we'll say that they found that 60% of surveyed customers are doubtful that the company's claims of about the company's claims of eco-friendliness, and this shows that we would need to, or Econis would need to shape a response to kind of curb that a little bit, because that's higher than they would like. So objectives after the research, you would set clear goals for what the response is going to be. You would come up with these goals using the SMART criteria: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. And for Econis, these objectives would include, or might include, to try to regain like 85% of customer trust by informing them of actions that they are going to take to kind of correct these non-sustainable practices within their supply chains, and they'll get that done within 3 months or so. And then to increase the awareness of Econis's commitment to sustainability up to 75% of their target audience through a new communication campaign. So these two objectives would kind of help Econis strategically start building trust back within their client base and their customers. And then not only that, but the public outside that reads and hears about their product and knows of them. After setting the objectives, you move on to the programming and planning stages. You would develop steps that you can achieve to, you would take steps to achieve the objectives that were set. So in the first step, we would make an action plan. Econis's action plan would involve possibly suspending contracts with the supplier that is not in compliance or that's using the non-sustainable practices, and then kind of bumping up their partnerships with their suppliers that are known to use the eco-friendly practices that they hold up. And this move would kind of help demonstrate accountability, and it would show that they are committed to sustainable practices. A communication plan would be a kind of multifaceted plan that would be aimed at different stakeholders. So you would have the CEO possibly come out and deliver like a message or email or even a video message, and you could share that on like the company's website or social media. And that would just kind of outline the actions that are being taken to correct the damaging relationship they had with the supplier that was using the non-sustainable practices. And then also reiterating Econis's core values that they want to uphold. Could also just go on a whole social media campaign, which would kind of highlight all the positive things Econis is doing and kind of try to bring them back to higher point of view, I guess you could say, within the eyes of their customers or the perception of their customers. So after setting those two plans, you can move on to a strategy to kind of set the medium and how it's going to reach the audience. So with social media, you could do things like real-time updates and engage with your customers and even people who have questions about the company. You could do press releases or like newsletters even to either the media outlets to kind of maintain public transparency, or the newsletters for customers who want to continue their involvement with the company and stay engaged. After taking steps like these, you can move on to the evaluation phase. So once you would get these campaigns launched, you would focus on assessing how effective the campaigns are going and how long each one may take to achieve the goals that you had set. So you would use quantitative metrics to track things like social media likes or comments or even dislikes. You can check how many of your emails are being opened and how many people are in return coming to promotionals or promotion sales, or just how it is affecting your sales and the customers you have. And you can even check the views if you have any like videos put out, like as if the CEO were to put out a video statement. So we'll say, just for the sake of having numbers, that after going through these metrics, they track social media and how it has affected the public's perception of Econist. And within the first 3 months, it was bumped up 47% to an increase in a positive attitude towards the company. And with qualitative measures, you could actually analyze the things like the comments that are left by the customers online on social media, or you could take feedback from, say, your video online that may have been, or the company's video online that may have been posted. And even you could answer direct messages from customers that may just have inquiries about what practices the company is using and what practices their supply chains are using and things like that. So could also do something like follow-up surveys in the long run that would kind of show how your current customers are feeling about your product and total views on the company. So using these, Econists would kind of understand the strengths of their response plan, but also the areas that they need to improve in, the weaknesses. So the fifth step is stewardship, and that involves maintaining the relationships they built or strengthening the ones that they already have throughout their campaign. So Econis's approach could include initiatives for like customer loyalty, like a loyalty program of some sort, since that is the thing nowadays, that you could possibly feature like exclusive content, or even have exclusive products that only certain customers can order. You could do like monthly or even quarterly updates through email, just to kind of give your customers an inside look about how the company has been doing, and it kind of keeps a transparency with your customer base and kind of lets everybody know that you are what you say you are. And you could also just continue to engage with your customers or anybody you're reaching out. It just shows a lot when people can talk to real people. It can really change the perception of a company. So this would help build the trust back in Econist customer base, and it would also help to maintain like a long-term loyalty within that base, kind of keep a reason for their customers to come back and have a high view or high lookout on how Econist is as a company, and knowing that they are they use sustainable practice and eco-friendly practices. So this would kind of demonstrate how the ropes model could be used in a public relations department to kind of guide through a crisis situation, such as what most companies deal with at some point or another, which is just having something bad go along the way and word spreading that this or that, your company is not good because of one mistake. But there is ways that companies can approach this if it were to happen, and kind of have steps to guide themselves, a structure along the way, which is what the ropes model provides. That's pretty much all I had written. But I think the ropes model is very useful because it can help you as even entrepreneur or just as a worker for your company solve like inside problems and stuff. If anything major were to happen, you can kind of just lay it all out in the structure, follow the 5 steps, and kind of get an idea for what the problem is and what possible solutions may be to fix it, and how your customers feel about those solutions, and so on and so forth, hopefully until you get your problem fixed and your customer base built back. But thank you for listening to me today.